Let's get down to business. What's going on, guys? I'm Gentleman Knight, and this is the first of weekly videos that I'll be doing that I'll call DC Thirsty, your weekly retrospective on the state of the DC universe. So, it's been a lot going on in 2022, and soon to be a disaster of 2023. DC for DC movies has not been a good couple of years. So I'm going to talk about a couple factors here. And first, before I go into this retrospective, let me talk about these two guys here. If you're a big fan of Ben Affleck's interpretation of Batman and Henry Cavill's interpretation of Superman, these Jack-specific big figures, pretty awesome and becoming harder and harder to find. Do recommend that if you want to collect these before they become really difficult to find online, start looking around right now. I found this armored Ben Affleck Batman from Justice League on Amazon a few months ago for about $34.99. Probably find them on Amazon, on eBay for around the same price. This Henry Cavill Superman, which is a variant of the Batman versus Superman jumbo figs, with his red eyes and his darker suit. I found him, I believe, on Etsy for about 45 bucks. But there's not too many of these going around, especially with this variant Superman. He's got the light beam eyes. Anyway, just thought you guys should go out and take a look at these awesome big figs and see if you can find them if you're going to be a collector, and try to get these figures before they kind of disappear altogether. But I digress. Let's get down to business. So again, not a good couple of years for the DC universe. I'll start off with this first factor, that being how we got to this point. So James Gunn, Peter Safran have taken over the DC universe. First effective date being November 1st. The interpretation is that they're going to turn this entire universe on its head and create a complete reboot. Recast of everybody. So Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill are all gone. Wonder Woman as Gadot, gone. Aquaman, Jason Momoa, gone. Ezra Miller as the Flash, probably gone. So entire new Justice League, new set of movies, new continuity, new universe. So is that a good thing? Business-wise, it makes sense since there's not excitement for the existing universe, that what they call the Snyder Universe, started up by Zack Snyder with Man of Steel over 10 years ago now, or just about 10 years ago. But let's just start with the excitement that's going on right now. You've got probably a smaller base of people that, including myself, that are disappointed, some enraged about the loss of their favorite actors and that universe that they had longed to for so long that just hadn't gotten the love that it needed to. And then there's those that are super excited for the possibilities that James Gunn and Peter Safran are offering. My perspective is this: don't get excited yet. By my estimation, this is probably the fourth big change with trying to create a connected universe. Why do I say that this is the fourth? First, you had the attempt to create Justice League Mortal. That was a movie that was going to be created as a separate continuity from Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. So Christopher Nolan was doing his movies, and then I believe around the 2008-2009 timeframe, Justice League Mortal came into production. This was right around the time that there was a really bad writer's strike that had hit. They were trying to fast track this Justice League Mortal into production. This was going to be right out of the gate a Justice League movie that was fun and popping with color and had all your favorite characters: Batman, Superman, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman. They were all going to be in this film, The Flash. They're all going to be in this movie. And then they had sets were starting to be built. The cast had set foot in Australia. It was going to be directed by visionary George Miller. And then literally just a few days before they were supposed to go before cameras, they already had the suits were already developed. And just a few days before they were supposed to go into lensing and filming on this movie, what happens? So the expectation was that this film was going to get a big tax break by filming in Australia. But it did not meet all the factors, all the check marks and the boxes to be considered an Australian production. Yes, you had some staff that was Australian. You had a director that was Australian. You had some production teams that were Australian, but was not considered to meet the percentage required to meet the tax breaks. So, for one, at the last minute, Warner Brothers is finding out that, oh, this is not going to meet the budget that we were hoping for. That was the biggest factor. So we're going to have to scrap and rethink. Second thing, from what was rumored, was that the Warner Brothers executives were still not satisfied about the script. They couldn't change it. Writer's strike had already hit. They had a script. They had to go forward with what they had. So that's a strike. Not having a strong script that was not confidence or didn't have the confidence of the executives. Third strike. Apparently, and the rumor was that executives were also not sold on the cast. You had Armie Hammer as Superman. You had Armie Hammer as Batman. You had DJ Cotrona as Superman. You had a villain that which I believe was Maxwell Lord in the movie, and he was using Batman's OMAC project that had been reformatted to take out our heroes, these robot sentries that go after the Justice League. But again, there were cast members in different roles. You also had Talia al Ghul, I believe played by Teresa Palmer. And between all these different factors, not being satisfied with the script, not being sold on the cast, and having a ballooning budget, they scrapped the movie. And this movie would have been a start of a new universe, separate and independent of Nolan's, and still going on in parallel to Nolan's trilogy. So that went away. That we never got to see, besides some photos and the cast essentially partying right before the movie was supposed to start lensing. So that's the first attempt. Second attempt that people don't really count is Green Lantern. Green Lantern, this was starring Ryan Reynolds just a few years later. That was supposed to start a new universe, a new connected universe. You had Amanda Waller, I believe played by Angela Bassett. Somebody could correct me about that. I'll have to verify that later. But she was going to be kind of the connective tissue between all these movies. So Green Lantern was supposed to be the start of a new connected universe. When Green Lantern failed, that went to the wayside. Then you had Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder did Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and then when Batman vs. Superman came out, 1 week later, he was actually not even 1 week later, I think it was a matter of days later, he was set to film Justice League. What happened when Batman vs. Superman came out? They started seeing those opening numbers and they realized, ooh, this movie's not going to hit the $1 billion mark that they hoped. It's going to miss it by quite a lot. Oh, and we are not doing critically as well as we had hoped. So reviews weren't positive, and the box office was not hitting the numbers they wanted. And Zack Snyder's movies, even though beloved by many, or that's subjective, but it's at least beloved by me and a number of Snyder fans, it just didn't kind of gather the anticipation that people were wanting. The critics were just not kind to it. So what happened? Well, they just kind of battened down the hatches and just let Zack Snyder continue on with Justice League. But during the length of that production, once he was filming that movie, the hammer came down once they started seeing the cut of the movies, and they fired him. And they brought in Joss Whedon, and the film was not received as well as they had hoped when it came out. Um, and then you had multiple sets of regime changes. You had a set of executives kind of come in, square off, try to get director Joss Whedon from Marvel, who had been a proven success, having done Avengers and helped with the success initially of the Marvel Universe. Of course, you had Kevin Feige on the side there, but at that time, Whedon was the golden boy, brought over to DC to help things out. That failed. You had Walter Hamada, who was an executive at the time, took over DC to herald it into the next age for a couple of years. Of course, his interpretation was Ben Affleck isn't working, Henry Cavill isn't working. What can we do? Can we erase Batman? Can we erase Superman? What's working? Wonder Woman's working, Aquaman's working, and Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg, I don't think we're going to use him, but we'll use Ezra Miller as the Flash, and we'll use that as a within-universe reboot, or partial reboot, I should say, within continuity to change things up and take away the factors that don't work. So I'm not even counting this as the fourth reboot yet. So with Peter Safran and James Gunn taking over, you have essentially the fourth big takeover, the fourth big attempt to create a DC universe. We haven't even gotten to the whole Dwayne Johnson factor of it yet, the whole Dwayne Johnson elements of this whole thing. So 4 major attempts to create a connected universe. Now, at this point, I wouldn't get excited. Let's see what James Gunn has to offer. Let's see if he's got more than 2 wins in his belt. Actually, let's be realistic. Let's see if he's got 2 wins in his belt and his contract's extended beyond the 4 years that he currently has it. That's when to get excited. He could put out a Superman movie. That's a good hit. Receiving both critical acclaim, receiving love by fans, but also something else that he heralded on the side as a producer, as the executive, the head of the co-exec of DC Films. Once that happens, once he has 2 wins in his belt and he has gotten his contract extended, then I'll be excited. But I will say that 2 major things are worrying here. Warner Brothers' financial issues. They're getting rid of Looney Tunes cartoons on HBO Max. What happens when a studio can't even afford Bugs Bunny? It's like Disney not just like, oh, we can't afford to have Mickey Mouse on our platform. We have to get rid of Mickey Mouse on Disney Plus and just sell them off on Netflix. That's bad. They're in a financial pickle, to say the least. They've got, I believe, about $47 billion worth of debt that's ongoing and growing. So between the financial issues that Warner Brothers is dealing with, there's also the aspect of what are they going to do to handle these financial losses? It seems like this can't keep on going on. And James Gunn, Peter Safran are only under a 4-year contract. What happens? Is this company going to be sold again to continue the life of Warner Brothers? Is James Gunn and Peter Safran going to continue with Warner Brothers for the long term? Is this going to be something that sticks, or is this going to be another Zack Snyder situation where you bring somebody on board and then when things aren't going your way, you blink? And that's the continuum of all these. This studio has continued to fail because they continue to blink. The first scare, the first risk, they blink. And maybe that's just the business interpretation that they have to be successful, or the interpretation that they have to get to be successful, that they have to pivot constantly to try to get to the point they want. Now, this is the first time that they've really kind of structured to have a head of everything, or co-heads of everything. That's the first time they've done that. But I will say that I think it's a little cheating a bit that they're trying to copy the model of Marvel and then paste it on to create success for their own. With Marvel Studios, they evolved. Marvel Studios has existed for quite a long time before they were bought by Disney and before Kevin Feige grew to power, which I think was even around the post-Iron Man 2 regime, where he had taken over when the previous execs had left, and Whedon was kind of on his way out too. So copying and pasting the endpoint of Marvel, is that going to work? I hope so, but I am not going to get excited yet. I'm not going to say that this is an excellent idea because we've been in these conversations. We've been in this trepidation of excitement with Justice League Mortal. We've been in this excitement, not necessarily with Green Lantern, but we've been in this excitement with Justice League with Zack Snyder. So it just seems like we're in the same conversations over and over again. Let's wait and see. When Peter Safran and James Gunn are in 2026, things are going well. They're going to be extended. Warner Brothers, whether it's been sold or whatever, is in a better position financially that they can continue to build on this. And there's confidence in that leadership, then by all means. But I will caveat and caution this, that Peter Safran and James Gunn, let them be. Don't blink. And to James Gunn, stop posting stuff on Twitter. Like, you don't need to respond to everything. And it's a bad form when the first thing you identify, first official notice of your slate, Superman of the new DC slate, you announce on Twitter. It's not even a trade or an official announcement. The official announcement is your Twitter announcement, which is copied and pasted on the trades. The TV show Superman and Lois on the CW had a better announcement than the official Superman movie in the DCU, heralded by James Gunn, because he posted it on Twitter. That's a lesser announcement than what the trades got for Superman and Lois Season 3 on the CW. So it's a bit amateurish, but we'll see how it goes. It's a learning experience. This first time that James Gunn has been the head of a studio. We clearly know that he makes great movies and can turn small, minor, D-list characters into lovable, well-known properties. So if he can make a great movie, we all know he can, but will the studio hold that confidence despite the financial numbers and maybe even some potential critical, or let's see if he gets the critical acclaim that Warner Brothers is hoping for. So we'll see how it goes. Now, the Dwayne Johnson of it all, a lot of people are ragging on Dwayne Johnson, especially some of the trades. It seems like every week, The Wrap, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, everyone's just a hit article on Dwayne Johnson. And Dwayne Johnson, in my opinion, he has just been an inspiration for fans and just for somebody to really create and craft and create content. This is somebody that tried to swing and missed with Black Adam, but really tried to create content. And absence of anything, you weren't getting Superman on the big screen. You got him twice this year. You got him within DC Super Pets, and you got him within Black Adam. You may have not liked those movies potentially, but you got a Superman on the big screen. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten anything. And because of that, his attempts to do that were also, and let's just talk about spoilers, guys. I'll leave this as a spoiler caution. So if you don't like spoilers, cut it off right now. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. So what is being stated as far as the Flash movie coming in June of 2023 is that Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot signed and did cameos for the Flash that were at the end of the film. So within the Flash, you have an action sequence at the beginning of the movie that has Wonder Woman in the beginning. So she's in the first action sequence. And then, to my understanding, over the course of the movie, possibly or most likely using archival footage through editing, you see quick glimpses of Henry Cavill, but not necessarily new footage. Then at the end of the movie, and this is through scoopers, this is through a little, some of it was referenced in some of the recent trade articles, is that Henry Cavill and Wonder Woman were at the end of the Flash movie as well as newly filmed footage. And to my understanding, based on some of the implications, they just filmed that back in October. So what does that mean? The Flash is all about this multiverse that is a convergence event, that there's a folding of Michael Keaton's Batman universe, that there's a folding of Supergirl's universe, and that all converges at the end. So some people like Ben Affleck disappear in that folding of the universes and don't make it to that prime universe. And I think in the previous iteration of that film, there was no Henry Cavill and there was no Wonder Woman at the ending. The all intent was that it was clearly made that Henry Cavill's Superman was erased as well. But based on those reshoots, Henry Cavill was back at the end of that movie, and Wonder Woman was still there. Gal was still there at the end of the movie. That cameo, or those cameos, seem to have been from the recent test screenings cut. But that was something that was a push by Dwayne Johnson. He was bringing Henry Cavill back. So you were seeing more and more Superman. He was going to be making these appearances. It wasn't just a Black Adam show all the time. You had still content coming out. You had your beloved characters showing up on screen. And that was going to continue. Dwayne Johnson was trying to create content. Whether you liked it or not, you were getting content. These characters were not sitting in the shelf, at least within a this universe, this connected universe. They were not sitting on the shelf. So don't rag on the Dwayne Johnson. Don't rag on The Rock. He was trying to create content for this universe. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. And while he's on top, people are noticing that and they're hyping him up. But whenever they see a crack, whenever they see just a smidgen of failure, they will dump on it and they will love to see that hero fail. So unfortunate for Dwayne Johnson. I would have loved to have seen if he was able to have more of a presence in the universe to push these characters. I don't think if he had stayed, I don't think he would have just stopped at Henry Cavill. He would have brought back, in my opinion, if fans are vocal enough, they would have brought back Ben Affleck.